and welcome to session 5. We're going to talk about communication and some other things, but we're going to start with communication. Communication exposes what is going on inside the human heart. Matthew chapter 12, verse 34, Jesus said, "For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks." And if your heart is governed by fear, guess what? That's what you're going to communicate. Your body language, your actions, your everything, your words, your tone, all those things. If it's governed by faith, hope, and love, well, then that's what you're going to communicate. That's what you're going to say when you speak. That's what's going to be projected with your body language. Now, we've already talked a little bit about powerful people and powerless people, and we all agree that we want to be powerful people. But let's talk a little bit about powerless people and what ways they use to communicate. They use passive communication, aggressive communication, and everyone's favorite, passive-aggressive communication. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Passive communication first. Really at the core of this is you matter and I don't. This is the martyr. This is the person who just lays down their opinions, their thoughts, and everything. No, it's not about me. It's about you. So they justify devaluing themselves by painting themselves as that long-suffering martyr, right? They're patient servants who keep the peace no matter what. They think it's right to not have any needs or requirements. That doesn't work for them. You see, they lie because they're afraid. They're afraid that you won't find their needs valid. They don't even want you to know that they have needs. They think that they'll be punished sometimes for telling the truth. They're afraid of communicating what's going on with them because they're afraid you're going to think they're a bad person. That really just feeds their own anxiety, and it just grows and grows and grows. It's all based on fear. But the problem is you're never actually dealing with the real person. You're always seeing a facade. So let's look at aggressive communication. The core here is I matter and you don't. Well, that's pretty out front, pretty blunt, but that's the reality. They just look at things and say, you know what, my feelings and my thoughts are the only thing that matter. And they may not own that as a reality, but that's how they communicate. It causes anxiety in the entire room. It just blows up the whole house. It's just kind of the worst reality. And there's no safety. And the relationships that are in that are usually relationships of survival. Just a terrible way to be. Now, everyone's favorite, like I said, passive-aggressive communication. Pretty much imagine the worst parts of passive and the worst parts of aggressive and stick them together. Danny Silk talks in Keep Your Love On about the chocolate-covered dragon. He's what he uses to describe this, because to everyone else, the passive-aggressive communicator is really nice and sweet because it's very surfacey, but it doesn't take long to get past the chocolate and get to the dragon. You know what I'm saying? So this is just not a good thing. Their core belief is that you matter. Not really. Not really. They pull the rug out from underneath you. So it's all about what happens behind closed doors. Now, these are some of the things that the powerless person does. These are tactics. But what does a powerful person do when they communicate? It's called assertive communication. This is what powerful people do. The core belief there is you matter, but so do I. My feelings, my thoughts, they all matter, but yours do too. It's honor. It's mutual respect. They're not afraid to show what's going on inside of them, but they're interested in what's going on inside of you too. And we're going to talk about communication a little deeper here in a second. The reason for all this, they're unafraid of being powerful and letting people who are powerful around them be a part of that communication. In fact, they almost demand that the other person have an assertive style of communication. They'll pull it out. Tell me what you're feeling. So let's think about communication for a second. The idea of communication here is not to win an argument, but the heart of communication is understanding. To win an argument, you don't really need to communicate. You just sit there and pontificate and tell everybody what you think. But when you're trying to communicate, you're trying to hear from others what their thoughts are and share yours so that something can actually be accomplished. So it's not really communication if you're just talking without that purpose. We need to start saying things like, I want to understand your unique perspective and experience. We need to communicate that. We want to understand who they are, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and then we want them to understand the same thing about us. That's how we can really start connecting. And that really is the goal, to connect. That's the priority in communication, to connect intimately. So basically, let's just start focusing on practicing those things. It's okay, sometimes we revert back to some of these old styles, but just remember, assertive communication, direct and honest, open communication is really the best process. You need to practice listening to understand and really focus on that. And then make sure that you're honest and real with yourself. All right, let's move on. Talk about the trust cycle. First of all, you need to understand we're designed to live by trust, out of trust. I mean, think about every practical relationship in your life. If your kids don't trust you, there's a problem. Friends don't trust you, there's a problem. Guys in the military, they trust their lives with one another. We're designed that way. But, trust can be damaged. It's pretty easy. It happens when we fail to identify and express our needs, and so the person on the other end, they don't meet those needs. So all of a sudden we have mistrust, and that can cause a cycle, because as soon as you have mistrust, it just goes round and round and round. It causes alienation. There's painful realities of hopelessness, because one time after the other, you're constantly dealing with mistrust. And it really causes people to become more of a survivor. And we cut people off so that we can survive. We start building walls instead of boundaries. You simply cannot build a strong bond of trust without being able to communicate one another's needs. So what do we do to make that happen? We use something called iMessages. And no, this is not Apple's instant messaging product. What I'm talking about is the iMessage that says, I feel this way. It's open, honest communication. So for example, you would say, I feel blank when blank happens, and I need to feel blank. I'll fill in the blanks. I feel scared when you yell at me, and I need to feel safe. Okay, so that's an open and honest communication. Now, it's important you understand the distinction here. Sometimes we would say, I feel that you're doing something wrong. Well, that's not an I message. It's not an I feel message. That's an opinion message. If you can replace the word feel, if you can replace feel with think, then that's not what we're wanting, right? So an I message is an I feel message. Other stuff, the I think message, I think you're mean, or I think this, is really a judgment or an opinion. So that's not what you're feeling, honestly. It's what you think about the other person. So that's a real good litmus test on whether or not you're communicating what you feel versus what you think. When you do that, you're letting people see your true emotions when you say, I feel this way. And you're really accurately communicating what they would need to do maybe to make you feel a certain way. Because when they're acting a certain way, or something happens, or they communicate in a certain way, you're able to communicate with them accurately what that's doing to you. That builds intimacy. And we are made for intimacy. We're made for freedom. When we express our needs accurately to one another, then we have intimacy. I love how the intimacy breaks down. If you slow it down, it's into me, see. It's that moment of really, you look at somebody like, I see you, you know what I'm saying? So it's into me, see. It's created when two people can say these things honestly. Together we can be who we are and be honest about who we are. The experience of intimacy is one of the most rewarding human experiences on the planet. I mean, there's nothing more valuable and greater than really knowing that someone understands who you really are, that you're truly understood. We're made to have our needs met through relationships, and we can't really have great relationships without that intimacy. And we can't have that with people we're trying to control, because love is a free choice. It's the only thing that's really going to satisfy our hearts. We must be willing to offer the truth of who we are to those we love and receive the truth of who they are, because only knowing the truth can truly make you free. All right, you guys have a good group.